If you haven't noticed, we're in a recession here in the United States. It might not be official, but we're there. So the definition of a recession is this: it's a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activities are reduced, generally identified by the fall in GDP in 2 consecutive quarters. That's already happened. Here's the rub. Whenever you have a recession declared, there's usually massive job losses. The last 7 recessions, that's exactly what happened. That's not happening right now. And I think that's why some people think that we're not in a recession currently. August of 2022. Even though all the other factors are showing we're in a recession, we've got tons of jobs for people. There's plenty of businesses just begging for employees right now. If all the other factors continue for too long, it might change, but in my personal opinion, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal this time. That being said, people will lose jobs, and when people lose jobs, they cut back. Some people ride out the tough times on savings, some will relocate for another job opportunity, while others might find a lesser paying job and a more affordable place to live until the recession ends. Either way, a lot of people will be on the move in the coming months. Today's video is the best states to be living in to survive a recession. I'll give you the states and the reasons I would move there. This video is my opinion that I get from stats that I've learned over the last few years and ones I'm looking at now. Get it? Got it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Texas. That's right, the Lone Star State shows up at number 10. In a lot of previous years, it would have been, in the top 5 at least. A lot of people have moved to Texas, and it's not just because they like the Dallas Cowboys. They have affordable housing, low taxes, good paying jobs. In most categories, Texas falls into the top 10. But with that popularity has come a little bit of a influx of people, as you already know, especially if you're in Texas. And that's kind of, like I've said before, dulled the shine on the Lone Star State. That's because their cost of living and their cost of housing have gone up quite a bit in the last few years, but they're still more affordable than most other desirable states. Sure, you got places like Louisiana and Mississippi that have cheaper homes and a lower cost of living, but nobody wants to live there. So low cost of living, low taxes, affordable housing, and job opportunities put Texas on this list. If I was going to move there, I would probably go to the Plano area, which is just north of Dallas in case, it's in the metro area, in case you don't know. I'd look at San Antonio too. They do have some pretty sketchy neighborhoods. Make sure you know where you're going. If you're retired and living on a fixed income and you want to move to Texas, I'd look at Amarillo and Lubbock. Not the greatest places to live, but they're definitely affordable. Number 9, West Virginia. West Virginia is definitely recession-proof. I mean, they're always one of the top 5 states that are leading the country in affordable housing and cost of living. It's beautiful. It's got wonderful people. They definitely don't have a great job market, even though it's not terrible anymore like it has been in past years. Their economy just isn't doing great. If you're working remotely, West Virginia is the perfect state to move to because you could be pulling in a decent salary for someone maybe living in New Jersey or even New York. And if you're living in West Virginia doing that, you're living like a king. Let's say you're not knocking it out of the park either when it comes to salary. This is a great place to live because of the affordability. It's the main reason. People are great and it's a beautiful state. If you were going to move to West Virginia, there's 2 areas I would look at. On the west side, Charleston, the state capital. It's a beautiful city. It's got some jobs and it's still affordable, and it's the biggest city they got in the state. There's also Charlestown, which is on the northeast side of the state. It's just west of Harper's Ferry, and this whole area is great for people that kind of want to live in the country but still need to, let's say, work in Washington, D.C. or even Baltimore. Both Washington, D.C. and Baltimore are about an hour's drive from Charlestown, a little bit closer if you're in Harper's Ferry. Number 8, New Jersey. New Jersey is a little unique, and you got to hear me out on this one because a lot of people probably just groaned because I never say good things about New Jersey. New Jersey has some things going for it. Number 1, its proximity to New York City. A lot of people still need to work in that city, and that city is an extremely expensive place to live. If you're working in New York City, you still might be able to afford a house in New Jersey and be able to commute. Now, is New Jersey as cheap as, let's say, West Virginia or Mississippi or something like that? No, New Jersey's kind of an expensive place to live, especially when you look at taxes and things like that. But is it cheaper than New York City? Absolutely. New Jersey has a lot of things that most people might be surprised about when it comes to statistics. They always show up in the lowest crime rate top 10 lists. Now we're talking statewide. We always get someone in the comment section that will bring up like the worst city. Like New Jersey has Camden, okay? Camden sucks, but that's not the whole state. New Jersey's also one of the best states to get an education, especially higher education. They have some of the best universities in the country. Rutgers, Princeton. Side note to that, I had a guy argue with me one time. I mentioned Princeton was in New Jersey, and he said no, it was in Massachusetts. So right away I explained, no, you're confusing it with Harvard. Harvard's in Massachusetts, Princeton's New Jersey. And he said, no, actually I'm confusing it with Brandeis. How the hell do you confuse those two? I actually emailed him back. I replied to his email. Well, how do you confuse those two? What he said was, forgive me, I'm from Connecticut. That's all he said. Number 7, Idaho. Yeah, there's a reason Idaho always shows up on the most moved to states. It's affordable, it's nice, they're easy on cost of living and housing, relatively safe. One of the biggest things statistic-wise for Idaho is their fiscal stability. They rank 4th in the nation. Why would you look at fiscal stability? Let me explain it to you. Fiscal stability tracks a state's government credit rating, their pension fund liability, their budget balancing, and their liquidity. When their fiscal stability is out of whack, they usually start having to cut back on things like fire departments, police officers, school lunch programs, education. No, they got it together, and all those things, in most cases, are well funded. Please don't bring up schools because I'm with you on that one. Schools are always underfunded. But when you compare it to other states around there, they're doing pretty good. Idaho is a great place to raise a family. It's great if you like to be outdoors. It's also a great place to live if you hate Californians, because that's a really good conversation to start with people. Normally goes something like this. You know, there's only one thing I hate more than jock itch, and that's Californians moving to Idaho. If you start a conversation like that with someone at a bar, they may introduce you to their daughter and ask you to marry her. Yeah, most people from Idaho that are like born and bred, they've just had enough of Californians moving up here. But here's one side to that a lot of them don't realize. Most of the Californians moving up there are Republican. They always think that a bunch of liberals are moving up there from California. Trust me, Beverly Hills and Bel Air and Venice Beach are not clearing out and moving to Idaho. They're going to Texas, Oregon, and Washington. Idaho has a decent cost of living, even though it has been going up in recent years. It's still doing better than most states that are desirable. I always got to throw that in because it's not affordable if you compare it to Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and New Mexico. It is reasonable and they have jobs. If I was going to move to Idaho, I would move to Eagle, Idaho, Meridian. Post Falls is pretty decent. And Boise, for being like the biggest city they have in the state, it's a pretty nice place to live. Number 6, New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a great place to live, especially if you like the outdoors, you like cold winters. It is a beautiful state with amazing people and a lot of things to do. It's also got a decent economy right now, and it's extremely safe. Here's the reason I bring that up. This isn't about crime or anything like that. This is kind of looking at your money. But as states get in worse shape with, let's say, jobs and stuff, crime rate will go up. New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont are always number 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to the lowest crime rate. New Hampshire also comes in number 2 for natural environment. It's a beautiful state. There's this other stat that they are doing pretty good in. They rank 3rd in opportunity. Opportunity ranks poverty, housing affordability, equality for women, minorities, and people with disabilities. They're 3rd in the nation on that. Number 5, Florida. Florida's just cheap. It's a cheap place to live, and in most places, it's not terrible. Sure, you have places like Miami and things like that are extremely expensive, but a majority of this state is affordable in both cost of living and housing. They're ranked 8th in the nation when it comes to economy and fiscal stability. They're also number 8. Decent weather until a hurricane comes through. Sure, you got to deal with mosquitoes also, but all in all, Florida's not a terrible place to live. Now, politically, if you got problems with what's going on there politically, that might be a reason to stay away if that's your thing. To me, I don't care about your politics. If I want to move someplace, I'm going to move there. It's always seemed kind of silly to me to stay out of a state or a town because of how most of the population votes. If that's how you are, then you've let the other side, as you see them, win. They chased you off by their voting record. Myself, though, if I was going to move to Florida, they have plenty of jobs in the Tampa area, and for being a beach community, a coastal city, whatever you want to call it, nice bay there, it's fairly affordable. And please don't bring up some on the water mansions are expensive. Yes, every place on the water has those, but a majority of the state and the area around Tampa are pretty decent price-wise. Number 4, Washington State. Washington State shows up a lot these days on the best states to move to, best states in the country, all that stuff. I mean, they don't have a state income tax, which is nice. U.S. News has Washington ranked 6th in affordability, 17th in education and health, 2nd in quality of life, and 3rd in economic health, and 6th in civic engagement. Everyone's going to just think about Seattle and the Seattle-Tacoma metro area. That's not the entire state. That's actually about an eighth of the state. You have incredible places to live down in the southwest section of the state and the southeast section of the state. Sure, Spokane's not the best place to live, but it's not terrible, especially when you compare it to some of the other places in the country. There's a lot of nice, small farming communities that you could live in Washington State. The other good thing is there's a lot of companies out of Seattle that are encouraging their employees to move out to the smaller towns. Still be close to Seattle, but work remotely most of the time. They want them to be close in case they need to come in for a meeting, or like I always look at it, the only reason they really want a remote worker to come in is to fire them. But sometimes you do have meetings and you have to go in, so that's kind of a thing these days. And a lot of the companies in Seattle, that's what they're doing. You could live down in Tacoma, Olympia, Tumwater, Aberdeen, which those aren't the best places to live, but they're affordable and they're not too far away from Seattle in case you do need to go in there for that meeting. Myself, I'm kind of getting into the areas around the Vancouver metro area, Vancouver, Washington, which is down on the south side right across from Portland, Oregon. You got Battleground, which I just did a video on. You got Ridgefield, which is coming up on a video. Those are great. Camas is wonderful. Mill Plain is great. Castle Rock, which I haven't been to. I'll be going there in a couple of weeks. I'll tell you about it. That looks kind of nice for a small town. Stay out of Longview. Anytime I mention anything good about Washington, there's this handful of dudes, and I see them all the time on here, and they just have this thing where Washington's the worst state and this and that. It's like, okay, it's time to move, dude. If you hate it that bad and you think it's that horrible, you need to move, because most of the country seems to think Washington is one of the best states to live in. Washington is ranked 6th in the nation for fiscal stability, 4th for education, economy is 4th, natural environment 15th. They got a lot of good things, and we haven't even talked about this one. They're ranked 8th in the nation for healthcare. But really, we're looking at economy and fiscal stability, things like that. That's what, getting through a recession's all about. Their unemployment numbers are good. Great state to live in. Sure, it rains a lot on the western side, and you got to deal with that, and also gets cold in some parts. Nothing major. Number 3, Utah. Utah is a state that I think that there's some weird things with the whole Mormon church and stuff, and just this reputation and mystique that goes along with that kind of holds a lot of people back from moving to Utah. Granted, the Mormon church, it does have a lot to do with how this state is run, and they do have a little power in the state, but anyone can move there. You don't have to be a Mormon. They don't control every aspect of everything you do in the state. It's not like that. And I think a lot of people that don't understand how things are there, I think that's kind of this vibe they have about the state. And it's a misplaced vibe. Utah's a great state. I'm not a desert state, and granted, I know they have mountains and all that. To me, it's kind of a desertous type state. It's not my thing, but it is a properly run state with great people, great economy. Cost of living in most areas is reasonable. They actually come in number 1 in economy in the United States, 5th for fiscal stability. Crime, that's 8th in the nation. That is not bad. Education, 10th. That's not bad either. The only thing that sucks for them statistically wise is the opportunity thing. Okay, so that kind of blows. They're ranked 30th, and then natural environment 47th. I guess not a lot of people like the desert. And their biggest feature, the Great Salt Lake, smells like battery acid. I don't know. I can't get past that. Every time I've been there, I'm like, this place stinks. Number 2, Minnesota. That's right, close your jaw. Minnesota is a great place to live. Let's think outside of the Twin Cities. Minneapolis, St. Paul, for being a major city, it's not terrible. It's not great either. Their economy is not bad. Their opportunity, they're second best in the nation. They got low crime rates, low unemployment numbers, fiscal stability. They're ranked 16th in the nation. Minneapolis is not that bad, though. I mean, if you're living in some place like Falcon Heights, that's great. Shorewood isn't horrible. Stillwater's great. Elk River, Minnesota's wonderful. Sure, brutally cold winters and decent summers. Their cost of living and housing are pretty low too, especially for a state that's somewhat desirable. I was in, Minneapolis all over, but I was staying in Apple Valley, which is part of the Minneapolis metro area. That's a wonderful place to live. But the low cost of living, affordable housing, and they got decent jobs. That'll get you through the recession. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget about our other channel On This Day. There's a link down below. We do videos 5 days a week, maybe going to 6 soon, about things that happened on each date. We cover famous births and deaths. Matter of fact, the other day we had Elvis died on the same day, Aretha Franklin, Idi Amin, Bela Lugosi, Babe Ruth, and Peter Fonda all died on August 16th. Different years, obviously. We'd love it if you went over there and subscribed. All right, on to number 1. And number 1. Iowa. If you can get past the boredom in Iowa, this is a great state to live, recession or otherwise. I mean, low cost of living, affordable housing, they have jobs, they have decent people, low crime rate. They're ranked 16th in education. Fiscal stability, it's 23, but that's not bad. Their opportunity, they're ranked number 1 in the nation. If you want to move to Iowa, some of the best places are going to be around Des Moines, but there's also places outside of Des Moines like Carroll, Denison, Atlantic is pretty nice. Up near Cedar Rapids, you have Marion. And one of the most statistically appealing towns in the United States, Decorah, Iowa. It's up in the northeast corner of the state. I look at a lot of stats and I see the rankings for a lot of different places. This small town has across the board great stats. Crime rate is 75% below the national average. You look at their cost of living, it's actually 20% below the national average. Their schools are rated an A+. Their employment numbers are 64% below the national average. Their income per capita is 4% below the national average, but their cost of living is so low and their housing so cheap, it evens out. All right, that's the top 10 states and where to move in those states to ride out a recession. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you got some information out of it. Where do you think is the best place to ride out the recession? Let me know in the comment section below. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.